Ever notice how some relationships just seem to click? They thrive effortlessly while others, well, they kind of fall apart. It's a question a lot of us ponder, like what makes the difference? And that's what we're digging into today, the why behind relationships that just don't work out. We've gone through tons of research for this deep dive, from psychology studies to relationship advice, all to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and in this deep dive, we really want to understand the root causes of relationship failure. Explore those common pitfalls, see the different perspectives on why things go wrong, and ultimately figure out ways we can build stronger, more resilient connections.
So let's jump right in. One thing that keeps coming up in all this research is, well, communication. But it's not just about how much you talk, right?
Right, it's more nuanced than that. It's the quality of the communication, the way we interact, that's crucial. In fact, researchers have pinpointed these really detrimental communication patterns they call the four horsemen of the apocalypse: contempt, criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And these are some serious red flags in a relationship.
Contempt. I always think of that as like the eye rolling, the sarcasm, those subtle digs that just make you feel completely unvalued. And the research backs this up. Couples where contempt is a regular thing have a much higher chance of splitting up, even early on.
Exactly. It's just straight up disrespect. And then there's criticism, which isn't about addressing a specific behavior. It's attacking the person's character, making them feel cornered, which leads to,
Defensiveness, basically dodging any responsibility, right? And then you got stonewalling, where one person just shuts down completely, emotionally withdraws. You're talking to a brick wall at that point.
You hit the nail on the head. All of these behaviors create so much emotional distance, making it almost impossible to actually solve any problems. And then there's this other pattern we see a lot, the demand-withdrawal pattern. One partner is pushing for connection, maybe trying to discuss an issue, and the other just retreats. And studies have linked this pattern to, get this, financial stress and lower relationship satisfaction.
It's interesting how these things all tie together, isn't it? Another thing that just seems fundamental is trust. When that starts to erode, it feels like the whole foundation is shaky.
Absolutely. Trust is the bedrock of a secure and connected relationship. It lets you be vulnerable, lets you really open up. But when that trust is broken, it can rear its head in all sorts of ways, like jealousy, controlling behaviors, even manipulation. And of course, infidelity is a major blow. It can completely shatter that sense of safety and commitment that's so essential.
Makes total sense. If you can't rely on your partner, that feeling of security just vanishes. And sometimes it seems like people just grow apart, their values or goals in life start to diverge.
Yeah, that happens. Those fundamental differences, even if they weren't a big deal at the beginning, they can become huge obstacles down the line. You can imagine one partner's super focused on their career, while the other really prioritizes family life. Those mismatched expectations about the future, well, they can lead to chronic disappointment and resentment.
And it seems like a healthy relationship isn't something you can just set and forget, right? It takes constant effort, like tending a garden.
100%. Relationships need active nurturing, consistent effort. Neglecting that connection, allowing yourselves to drift apart into different worlds, well, it weakens that emotional bond and increases the chances of the relationship failing.
So when we look at the reasons why relationships end, it's not usually just one thing, right? It's like a whole bunch of factors converging. You've got the individual stuff, like someone's personality or past experiences.
Exactly. Individual factors play a big role. Things like personality traits, whether someone's dealt with past trauma, even things like substance abuse can impact a relationship.
Yeah.
And then there's this concept of repetition compulsion. It's this unconscious tendency to recreate negative patterns from past relationships, even when we don't want to.
And then you layer on top of that the dynamics between the partners, how they talk to each other, how they deal with disagreements. It seems like the way you handle conflict is super important.
It's make or break, really. Healthy conflict, that's where you see active listening, empathy, a genuine effort to find solutions that work for both people. But destructive patterns, like those four horsemen we talked about, well, they do the opposite. And then we can't forget about all the external pressures, societal expectations, the unrealistic images we see in the media, financial struggles, lack of support from family and friends. All of these can contribute to a relationship breaking down.
It's a pretty complex picture. I came across some statistics about common reasons for breakups. Seems like lack of commitment is a major one, followed by infidelity, constant arguing, poor communication, financial problems, and unrealistic expectations. And, divorce rates for first marriages, they hover around 40 to 50%. It really highlights how common these challenges are.
Those numbers are definitely eye-opening. They underscore the importance of all the things we've been talking about, those core elements of a healthy relationship. And from a psychological standpoint, there are a lot of theories that try to explain these breakdowns. Some focus on the stages a relationship goes through as it ends. Others look at the cost-benefit analysis people make, whether they feel like they're getting enough out of the relationship. And then there's attachment theory, which looks at how our early childhood experiences shape our relationships later in life. There's also emotionally focused therapy, which emphasizes the importance of a strong emotional connection between partners. So the problems can stem from individual psychology or from the patterns of interaction in the couple.
So if we take a step back, it seems like building stronger relationships comes down to a few key things. Improving our communication skills, learning how to really listen, using I statements instead of blaming each other. We need to nurture trust, be honest and reliable, and be willing to have those tough conversations about our values and goals for the future. And above all, we need to prioritize the relationship itself, make it a priority in our lives.
That's it in a nutshell. And learning some constructive conflict resolution skills can make a huge difference. And sometimes, seeking professional help, whether it's individual or couples therapy, can be incredibly helpful in navigating those rough patches that inevitably come up.
It's clear that relationships don't usually just end for one reason. It's a whole web of factors. But understanding these dynamics, well, it gives us a chance to create healthier and more resilient connections.
Absolutely. And it brings up something for you to think about, as you've been listening to us unpack all these different facets of relationships that struggle. Which factor resonates the most with you? Which one makes you think, yeah, that's something I've seen before, whether in your own life or in the relationships around you? It's a question worth pondering